What's going on, boys and girls, and welcome back to Nth-Level Entertainment, the most awesome geek and car culture YouTube channel in South Africa. I am your host, Zwelethu Mahlangu. This is a moment that fandom, especially for DC, has been waiting for quite some time. I'm about to do a non-spoiler review to Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's essentially the same film, right? That was, intended all those years ago, with a few minor differences from here and there. We've always known from back then that Zack Snyder had a lot more footage and other things that weren't included in the theatrical release. According to him, in the watch party that he had for Man of Steel, where he announced the Snyder Cut finally being released, he mentioned that there was only about 30% of what he originally filmed that ended up in the theatrical cut, that there's so much more that we haven't seen yet. So it's the same film as far as what was intended for release, but in terms of the end results of each film, it's very, very different. A lot of the footage is the same, a lot of it is different. You could see from basically like some of the dialogue in each of the scenes that you've seen before, but the dialogue is different, and you can see that it's not just some sort of an audio edit. The actor is actually saying different lines. There's actually a lot more extra stuff that gives a lot more sort of narrative cohesion to the film. The scenes are set up a lot better than they were in the theatrical cut. There's a lot more reason and purpose to the dialogue and the scenes that are in there. And obviously one of the biggest differences is the fact that Zack Snyder's Justice League is a whole lot longer, but there are scenes in there that we've seen before that become so much better just because of the recontextualization of how they were filmed. And you can see how they play more into Zack Snyder's style of filming and how he shoots action and things like that. Things are a lot more expanded and broad and a lot more artistic as well. I mean, this is not a spoiler because, this is a non-spoiler review. But what I'm about to mention here is not necessarily a spoiler, but we've seen the theatrical cut, so we know that Superman comes back in the film, and the way in which comes back is very, very different. We all know from the trailers that there's now a black suit, and it works a lot better. A lot of it, like I said, is the same. Like Wonder Woman scene in the beginning of the theatrical cut is pretty much the same in terms of what happens, but the way it actually comes off in Zack Snyder's Justice League is so different. I really loved this film. It was a 4-hour film, so yes, it was a bit taxing to watch, but not taxing in that I wasn't captivated throughout the film. There's a lot of compelling material, and the way the story moves along, the pacing is it's lightning fast, despite the fact that it's a 4-hour film. And there's a lot of talk about how the character Cyborg, how his character journey is very, very different in this film. That much is very, very true. I'm not gonna talk about the details of exactly how that is, but it is such a better sort of character arc than what we saw in the theatrical cut. And we see a lot more of his significance as a character in his own right, as well as how he fits with the rest of the team and how he moves the plot along and how essential he is to their victory in the end. And Steppenwolf is vastly improved in this film, especially visually, and we get a little bit more backstory for him as well in terms of his motivations in what he's doing and all of that. And it kind of fleshes him out as a villain a little bit more. Essentially, it's ultimately the same storyline, but there are some insights that we missed in the theatrical cut of the film, which are fleshed out a lot more in this film. And it makes him a bit more relatable. He's a lot less PS2 graphic-y, like a CGI cutscene from a game like he was in the theatrical cut. He's a lot better now. He looks less human, because that was another one of my personal complaints in terms of how Steppenwolf looked in the previous film. You could see that yes, he's not a human being, he's an alien, but his features were a little too humanoid. I'm guessing maybe Joss Whedon did that for the reasons of the character articulating emotion and things like that through facial expression. It needed to be something that's somewhat recognizable for us to know what's going on in his mind or in his performance. And what better way to do that than to make a character look more human, because what's more familiar than a human looking face to convey emotion and expression. So that's one of the biggest improvements that are in there. Batman feels more like Batman now, you know. We're not getting more of that, I don't not like you. That was ridiculous. And, you know, the joke he made, you know, after the Justice League faced off with Superman, after resurrecting him, you know, when he asked him, do you bleed? Which was a line I think, okay, there are some things in the theatrical cut that I wish stayed. There were some lines and moments that were actually good in the theatrical cut that I wish stayed in this one as well, but didn't. Like, for example, you know, the line where Superman is like, you know, do you bleed? You know, that's not in the Zack Snyder cut. As well as, you know, you won't let me live, you won't let me die. That's also not in the Zack Snyder cut. It still works. It's still a better scene overall, you know, than what it was. In fact, there's a lot more involved in that scene as well in this cut. But I wish those lines stayed because I feel like they would have fit. They're not necessarily jokes. They're very sort of like, you know, dark and serious lines that I think would have fit the tone, especially of that scene. But that's no longer there, so that's one of the differences. And you know, there's a very interesting take on how they view the whole nightmare sequence that was introduced in Batman vs Superman, the quote-unquote premonition that Bruce Wayne had when Flash came to visit him from the future. There's a different take on that as well. There's a different take on the kind of meeting that they have after well, just before resurrecting Superman, after fighting Steppenwolf for the first time and deciding on how to move forward and making the plan of resurrecting Superman. It plays so much differently in this film, and I think it works so much better because, you know, it suits the narrative as, you know, this team of superheroes that's coming together and they're finding challenge in the villain, so what else to do? The tone of the dialogue as well as how things go in that particular scene, in how different it is from the Justice League, plays much better in this version. So it is definitely a fantastic film. I really do feel that if we got something similar to this at the original time of release of Justice League, and I say similar because obviously it wasn't going to be a 4-hour film. As much as I criticize Warner Brothers for being so capitalistic in how they cut it down to 2 hours, I still understand that, you know, the movie industry is a business industry and you do need to make your money out of ticket sales. So obviously it wouldn't have been a 4-hour release, maybe something like 3 hours, similar to Lord of the Rings and things like that. I think if we got something more similar to this version, the general fandom's view of the DCEU would have been very different by now. I'm pretty sure by now we would have gotten a Man of Steel 2 starring Henry Cavill, because Superman as a character was handled fantastically in this film as well. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't have greenlit further projects for Zack Snyder to helm in the DCEU. So that's going to be it for my non-spoiler review. It was a fantastic film. I really urge you to see it if you can. And if you have seen it, please let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. No spoilers if you can, because I'm trying to keep this non-spoiler. I will be shooting a spoiler review as well pretty soon. I think it should be coming up sometime tomorrow. But for now, this is my non-spoiler review. So that'll be it from you guys. Let me know what you thought. As usual, I have been Zwelethu Mashanu. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I urge you to take care of each other, stay awesome, and stay chasing your dreams to infinity and beyond.